All right, welcome back to video 3. This is our third video or stream that we're doing. All these are going to be live streams. Welcome back to video 3. Hold on, we got an audio issue. Hold up. Video or stream that we're doing. All these are going to be live streams. Welcome back to video 3. All right, hopefully, excuse me, hopefully we got it right this time. The first time I did it, the audio kept going in a loop over and over. It was repeating and echoing over and over, so I had to stop it and redo this. What had happened is I launched my channel page so I can view the live feed as it's coming the way you would see it, and I did not mute the audio, so it kind of repeats it, and when it plays it back, it's hearing it in my broadcast, and it repeats it again and records it, and it goes over and over. So I had to stop that real quick. Anyway, okay, on to bigger and better things. Basically, this video here is to decide, as it's titled, what kind of game we're going to create here. You know, we're sticking to a 2D, but with 3D elements. So I want to show you. Let me bring up this browser window here. The last video I did, last stream, I said I was going to go through and watch all these videos on the Unity interface, which I did. I went through all 8 of these, interface overview all the way down to number 8, introduction to the profiler. I also went through, I said I was going to just do game objects and components, but I wound up going through all of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the way down to layers, went through the basics. I started to go through the live sessions and go through some of that, but I got the itch to kind of get directly into Unity and start doing something with it. So I kind of stopped. I'm going to maybe review those later on my own time, and I encourage you, if you're trying to learn as we go along, the same way I am, just go through the videos, start with all the tutorials, especially the interface. They have some great videos there to go through that will teach you the basics. They do get a little boring and dry, but you know, any video is. So anyways, let me go back to what I was thinking on. I came across this website, and it's called free80sarcade.com. And you can play, they're all Java, I believe it's Flash-enabled games on this website. But anyways, for a first 2D game, I thought it would be great to rebuild or recreate some of these classics that are, they're very simple in nature. They have, you know, some simple graphics going on, and it's pretty basic. Obviously, we want to do an up-to-date version of Unity using their 3D, 2D tools. So obviously we're not going to clone it exactly, but I want to do a Unity variation of one or more of these games to get our feet wet. The first one I had in mind was just a, let's see, where was it? I guess something like either Galaga, something like that, or Space Invaders is real simple. And we may do, like I said, a few of them because they all have different styles of gameplay, and it would be a great way to just learn the basics of Unity. And after we get a few of these under our belt, we've built a few from start to finish, and we feel more comfortable in Unity and what its capabilities are and what our skill level is, we can move on to something a little bit better in the 3D realm. But so anyways, I jumped into Unity and was trying to figure out a couple of things before I got started, and I remember using something called a terrain, which is under game object here, under 3D object and terrain, and that's when I was doing I was looking at the 3D side of it, but it allows you to drop a basically a platform into your game, and then it actually has special tools because it's a terrain. It had special tools where you can raise or lower the height of the terrain. And you can also use import what's called a height map, and that's something you create in like a photo program, Photoshop or something like that, GIMP, any of those, and it could generate a rough terrain for you, and there's all kinds of tutorials on that. But anyway, so what I'm getting at is I started to just try to click on and use some of the things that I remembered fooling around with before, and I completely forgot all of it. So anyways, I deleted everything out of the scene. I'm back to the basics, and what I determined was I think I'm going to need to learn or watch a few more tutorials to get me back up to speed on where I was at before. So that's probably what I'm going to do in this series. Again, this if you're just catching up with us or just joining us in this stream, this is not a stream that's going to show you immediately step by step how to build a game. I'm actually learning this myself as I go. So there may be times where I'm trying to figure out how to do something. It's not going to be very exciting. So if you don't want to go see me through that entire process, maybe this isn't the series for you. But again, I wanted to show the actual raw footage of me doing stuff. You know, if it takes me an hour to figure something out, that's what I'll do if it's one little thing. But once I learn how to do it, I'll know how to do it. So everybody learns at their own pace. I may be a little bit slower than the average person or a little bit faster. I don't know. But as you do this, you can follow along. Obviously, once you see what I do, if you go to duplicate it on your end, you're going to be able to do it a lot quicker. But the first thing I wanted to do was figure out a way to recreate a Space Invaders game. I think that's the first one we're going to do. So there's a couple of things that I was thinking about with that game, and some of the things that we're going to need to know with that. But I guess what I want to do is show you, for those of you that maybe are not familiar with what that game is. Let's go back over here, click Space Invaders, and let me click there to allow flash, allow always on this site. And so let me see if I can zoom in the browser here a little bit so you can actually see it better. There, we can scroll that down a little bit. And so this is Space Invaders, and I'm not worried about necessarily duplicating the exact style of text and things they have here. What we're looking for is the gameplay. Can we actually develop something that has the same gameplay, the same feel? The graphics obviously are going to be different, hopefully better with all the tools we have. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in graphics because we're here to learn how to make games. And you know, as part of that, we'll need graphics, but we'll do some rudimentary graphics or even use built-in primitives that are in Unity, like cubes and spheres, and they have cylinders and balls and things like that. So we'll use some of that stuff as we need it, just to knock something out quick. And then if time permits, we'll look at getting some higher end textures and things that we can apply to some of the primitives that we use or something we design, and to make it look better. So but the main thing is learning how to use Unity and build a game, and possibly write some script, more likely, not possibly, but more likely, write some script in Unity, some code that will interact with the game objects we have in our scenes. So anyway, Space Invaders, here it is. Essentially, it has 3 different types of enemies. The first one worth 10 points, another one worth 20 and 30, and then it has this kind of red UFO ship. It's got question marks there for points, which means it's bonus. It's random. It's randomized anywhere. I think you get 50 points up to maybe 200 or 300. I'm not sure what the limits are, but let's go ahead and hit play. Play it once. The volume is a little bit loud. Let me see if I can turn it down a little bit. It is for me, at least. Maybe it's super loud for y'all. And so this one is keyboard driven only. You got to use the arrow keys to go back and forth. And you look at the bottom, you've got this This is your player controller, and you have these four green things are called, they're like shields, defense shields. They give you something to hide behind. But you can see as these things, the enemies are dropping missiles, they start to slowly destroy that defense shield you have. And now with this game, you use the arrow keys to navigate and spacebar to fire. So we can fire. You can only fire like one at a time. If I keep hitting the spacebar, it's not allowing me to fire again. So you get one missile, and once that either hits an enemy or goes off the top of the screen, then you're able to fire again. So it's very important to really aim and fire. So this is basically how the game plays. As, of course, you get hit by that, you're done. As you can see, as enemies move left to right, and then down, and then moves left, then right to left, and back and forth. Each time it hits the side, either left or right edge, the entire group of enemies moves down a little bit more. So, and you can tell by the sound, they move slightly faster each time. So the idea is to clear out the enemies before they get down to the bottom, which will obviously destroy you, your bases. When they get down to your bases, they actually do start wiping the base away. As they cross over it, it just destroys the bases completely. So the idea is to shoot the lower ones first. You see I'm horrible at this game. Of course, I'm not used to a keyboard-driven game like this with arrow keys. Simple spacebar. It's very simple with controls. Oh, that was lucky. I kind of missed. Got that on the ship. Alright, so game over. You get 3 lives is the way it starts. And so I got 790. That's essentially how the game works. We're going to build something like that. And you know, our point system may be the same, may be different. Maybe we'll do 100, 200, 300, and we'll do random points from 100 to 1,000 on the ship. But I want to get the basic gameplay going. It's going to be similar to that. So that'll be the first one. There's a ton of other games to look at here that we could try to duplicate. And the reason we're not coming up with a game from scratch is, you know, it takes practice. To develop a game, it's going to take practice. We need to make many games, different iterations of various games, because you're going to learn something from every style of game as we do this. And once we learn enough, like I said, enough skills with Unity and the scripting to do something worthy, that's when I'm going to lean toward doing something in the 3D realm. So, you know, I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but we'll find out. I believe once we get things rolling here, if I can get to doing this on a daily basis, we could easily do, like, let's say, you know, try to commit to doing one of these games a week, you know, one per week. And so, you know, I'd like to build about a dozen. So that would give us about 3 months of broadcast time, stream time, developing games, and then maybe start on something a little bit more ambitious and get into other tools as well. So I'm going to try not to use too many built-in or store-bought assets from the Unity store. There are a ton of things out there that are really nice and make things real easy, but again, I want to try to do everything from scratch within reason. You know, if it doesn't make sense for me to spend weeks at a time or maybe a month trying to build a model of a car, if I can pull a model of a car from the asset store for free and use it. So we may do some of that, but I don't want to just build, like, download complete games that are like, you know, we're going to modify and do that. We're going to build everything from scratch, possibly use some assets from the asset store and creating our own as needed. So the let's look back at the Unity manual. Like I said, the first thing I want to do is go through some additional working examples of some things and how to do different things. I noticed that there's another, I happened to click, let me go back to where this was. And I didn't even really notice this, but apparently in Unity when you launch it, before you click to do like a new project, there is a Learn tab you can click on, and you can download different projects. And these are some right here, what we're looking at here. These are some of the lessons it says that are there, like this play and edit mode. It lets you get in there and actually play around with a working game, and you fix like certain things or modify things that are there. So you don't have to really develop everything from scratch, but it gets you gets your feet wet accessing certain game objects and using some of the interface and making some changes. And so I think these 4 here, very basic tutorials, may be something I'm going to go through. And we'll step through that here in just a minute. So if you don't really want to watch me go through that, that's about the only thing that I really plan to broadcast, me going through these tutorials. Again, I want to get into doing some original content with rebuilding or recreating these games. So a lot of this stuff you can do in your own time and possibly pick up on the next lesson. I don't know how long this is going to take, but like I said, I'm going to keep these streams about 1 hour initially, and as I feel like there's more meat and potatoes going on in the stream, more content, more things that are interesting. We'll extend the time because obviously I'm sure anyone viewing this, once you really start to see the power of Unity and what it can do, you're going to want to see more. And of course, I'm going to want to do more because I probably get addicted to it and won't want to let it go. So, potentially turn into longer streams, more than an hour. But during the week, I'm going to keep them, reasonable, and on the weekend, I'm going to continue on this. So, and I'm going to try to stay. I haven't really been doing it, but I'm going to try to broadcast everything that I'm actually working on. I'm going to try not to work on anything like off stream. It's going to be everything on stream, and so you get to see the progress as we go on a game project. So that said, let me minimize this. I've got Unity already open. This was the basic project I made before, but I'm going to go ahead and close this project. I guess there's really no way to close any of that. You just got to load another project, and then it probably will prompt. Okay, so let's do this. New project. Okay, and this is what I was referring to. I've been in a project where you can click, give it a name, and do all that, 3D or 2D, and have it create. But on this Learn tab, let's click that. And I don't have them downloaded yet. I'm going to go through these right now just so we can fool around with some of this. So let's hit download on that. And it didn't take very long. These actually run right here in the Unity editor, so it's a great way to learn that and get more interactive with it. Okay, so let's start that one and see what that's all about. You want to save the changes you made in the scenes. As the main scene, your changes will be lost if you don't save them. I don't want to save them. We don't have anything. So I guess it's going to close Unity and relaunch it with that project. Okay, while it's loading, I'm not sure how long it's going to take. I created this document down here. It's called Questions. And this is something I was thinking about before. And this could apply to any kind of app, not necessarily just a game that we're doing in Unity here, but it could be any kind of application. These are some questions you want to ask yourself before you even get started trying to figure out what you're going to create. Or if you have an idea for an app, you want to ask yourself these questions and get an idea of what the answer is going to be. So it's going to help guide your direction and help overall when you develop your app. But the first question is, what type of app will I create? So once you figure that out, the next thing you're going to need to determine is what skills or knowledge will I need. So if you're new to all this, like we are right now, we know we need a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge. So specifically, we don't even know what yet, but we know if we're creating a 2D game, we're going to obviously games have graphics, they have some animation, have interaction with the user, the player of the game. There's going to be some kind of user interface, so we need to learn about UIs. there's a whole bunch of things to consider there. Depending on what type of app you create, that kind of dictates what skills or knowledge you'll need. Okay, so third question, what is the purpose of creating my app? So you got to decide. I mean, why? What's the purpose of it? What is it going to do? It's going to help people? Is it going to help? Is it going to be an automation tool, or I mean, is it for entertainment, that kind of thing? So it's just good to understand that, get an idea. Okay, and then what are the features of my app? So you also need to figure out what kind of features you want to have in your application or game and outline that. If you can outline some of the features that you want to have, it's going to make it easier as you develop. You're going to have that in the back of your mind. Sometimes, one feature depends on another. So as you're designing and putting this together, you can have more of a higher level view in your or thoughts in your head about the design of the app. So and how the features interact. And that's important. You don't want to have to redo a whole feature because you didn't consider some other part of the app that had a feature that was dependent upon it. So you need to be aware of that. Also, who will your target audience be? Sometimes that may dictate the way you create a user interface. Is it for a younger kids? If it's educational for younger kids, a game, you're going to make it more fun and interactive like that. If it's for an older crowd, adults, players over 18 or users over 18, for a game, it would be, it could still be fun and interactive, but the UI is going to be a little different. It may be, and it really depends on the app too. So just knowing your target audience, there's things to consider about age, what kind of music you're going to have in it. Is it targeted like kids' music? Is it, there's all aspects of the game you need to worry about based on your audience. And again, there's other things to consider than that, and that's an area to research. I'm just briefly touching on this, and these are questions that come to mind when I think of building a game. So you may have other questions as you develop your own. All right, what platforms will my app support? Are you going to be on a mobile platform? It's going to be Windows-based. It's going to work on Mac or Linux. Is it going to be strictly a browser-based platform? So you need to know if you're going to support certain platforms, is there anything special you need to do for that platform? Or does that platform support all the features you want to put in your game? Or if there's some platforms, in most cases, Unity will handle, from what I've read, it'll handle all the cross-platform compatibility that you need. But obviously when you're on a PC that doesn't have a game controller like a console game system would, you're going to be using keyboard navigation and mouse to work in the game or move around in the game. But if you're going to port that to a platform that has a game controller, not a keyboard and mouse, you may have to do maybe some internals you need to worry about as far as mapping the controls to the user experience. So, and how they're going to navigate and move around. So those are things to consider, and we're going to cross that bridge at some point. But to keep this simple, everything we create in this series is going to be more or less a standalone app that can run on a PC, a Windows PC. And so that's what we're targeting right now. We may do some other. Unity has a ton of support for a ton of devices, but I don't have all those devices, so I have no way to test it. I have a Windows PC, and so that's why I'm developing it for that platform. All right, and then how will you distribute the game or app? So you're going to share it with your friends. Can you just give it to them like a file? Do you have to package stuff up? Is it required for them to download it maybe through the Unity App Store or Asset Store? And that's stuff we're going to discover here as we go, because at this point I can't personally answer that question. How do you distribute a Unity app? I don't know yet. We're going to cross that line. And so those are questions that we'll cross, and we'll get those answers as we go. All right, so let's close that. So looks like our lesson loaded here, play mode and edit mode. Let's step through this. When we make a game in Unity, the basic steps are we make changes to our game. We test those changes by playing our game. Okay, that's pretty simple. We repeat this loop many times as we work on our game. In this tutorial, we will learn how to test our game. Okay, so let's hit start. So in the tutorial, we will learn how, that's what we're learning in this tutorial. It's how to test a game. I guess we're not making any changes, we're just learning how to test it. So let's hit start. And it says the highlighted window is called the tutorial window. Okay, we know that. That's what we're in right now. This is the tutorial window. Can we drag it around? No, I guess I have it locked in place. I can't drag it. I'm trying to drag it and I can't. So instructions and information will appear here. At the top right of the window is the home button. That's up here where I'm pointing. To return to the tutorial section anytime, click the home button. So if you want to go back to it, you just hit the home. Next to the home button is the restart button. To restart the current tutorial anytime, click the restart button. So I'm assuming that'll start the entire tutorial from the very start, not like the last area we're at. So obviously I don't want to restart anything. I'd like to get through these tutorials and move on and start doing something unique. All right, next to the home button is, okay, click next. We're going to click next. All right, so now it has the scene window open. Okay, the highlighted window is called the scene view. We know that. It says scene. You look at any tab on any of these windows that I'll tell you what type of window it is. If you went through those 8 or 9 video tutorials on the essentials of Unity, you already know all that. Now this is getting pretty basic here. Enter the play mode in the controller top. Okay, I know the play. Yeah, this is kind of basic. I think I already know this. I thought it was going to be a little bit more useful. Alright, so I hit play. Okay, move the character to the goal. So it says use the WASD keys, W-A-S-D. So if you're not familiar with that, on most games, W and S is your up and down or forward and back. And then A and D is like left and right. A for left, D for right. And so we're just going to use that, and the goal is, the goal is marked by a moving arrow. Use the escape key on your keyboard to restart this level. So I guess the goal is to just walk this guy around and get to the hole. Let him fall in the hole. Or a platform. So that's inactive. Okay, then we hit play again to exit. So that's how you start and stop your game if you ever want to get ready to build this, and we're in it. A little bit, okay. So that was pretty basic. Done. Yeah, that was pretty basic. I don't even know if I'm going to go through these. Game objects and components. We build, let's read on it before we even decide to do it. We build games in Unity using game objects and components. Learn about how adding a rigid body component to your game object adds physics behavior. Now that might be something useful. Let's download that and look at it. It's taking a little longer. All right. We're going to forget that other project. We're not going to keep any of that. We'll let Unity do its thing. At some point, I'll get the XSplit license. That's why it has the watermark in the bottom right corner. In order to do 1920 by 1080p, I need to pay for the license. But right now, my budget's a little slim. So when I get to a point where I'm doing something really cool here, I'll definitely pay for that license. Thank you, XSplit, for the use of it. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to show you all while that's loading. The main thing is making sure you knew about where the interactive tutorials were, how to download them and get to them, and I would recommend that for anyone. We're going to reference the manual for sure. I was looking up the terrain engine and terrain collider, but I don't necessarily know if we need the terrain. We could just use a, there's something in Unity that we can use in place of a terrain, because we're not going to be actually building terrain at this point. It is a cool tool though. I do want to show that at some point. That's a really cool thing that builds landscape real easy. And I looked at a few other videos for some other tools that are really cool that can, in about 20 minutes, can build a super nice open world environment that can be brought into Unity in a matter of, like I said, 20 minutes. It's with full trees and effects and shading, lighting, everything. It's really cool. Alright, so we're still loading there. It's importing a package. Okay. So apparently needs packages to load. Obviously, if you have a faster computer, yours might load a lot quicker. Mine's a little bit slower. Alright, so while that's going on, let's expand that. What do we have here? Working in Unity, the basics. I went through all that. I don't really didn't need to know that. 2D. Yeah, gameplay in 2D. Sprites. Tile map. See, I was envisioning redoing like the Space Invaders game in really a 3D environment with a 2D, locked into 2D mode, sort of, you know, X and Y navigation or movement for the objects, game objects, and enemies and player control. We could do a retro 2D version using their 2D kit, but I don't know. I think I'm going to steer clear of that for now. We'll decide later on. Alright, let's see if it loaded. Okay, looks like it's loading some audio files. Room atmosphere.ogg. That's the other thing. I guess while this is going, we could always research stuff like OGG. I've never actually heard of that file format. So let's see if we can find out what is a .ogg file. Audio. It's an audio file. We know that. Okay, the .ogg file extension is most commonly associated with the OGG Vorbis file format. OGG refers to the container format of these files, and Vorbis refers to the compression technologies designed for the OGG file format. OGG is an open container format that is used for the streaming and manipulation of audio and video files over the internet. Okay. See, now I didn't really know that. So it's an open container format that is used for streaming and manipulation of audio and video files over the internet. Alright, cool. Alright, so see how our Unity is doing. Okay, it's starting to load Unity now. I might play a little music in the background. Hopefully it won't be too loud. Hopefully it picks up. Some K-Love songs. Just trying that out. To get possibly a Spotify subscription or some Pandora. Alright, so we build games in Unity using game objects and components. This tutorial we'll learn about game objects and components and our knowledge to fix problems in another level of our game. Okay, so we're going to fix part of this game already. Okay, everything we can see, hopefully you can see, I don't know if y'all can see that or not. But I'm going to read what it says here because the text might be small and it doesn't look like I can drag it any bigger. Now the text is the same size, so I'm not going to fool with it. I'll read it. So everything we can see in our scene is a game object. So everything in the scene is a game object, whether it be an audio file, a graphic file, prefab, terrain, a player. I mean, everything's in a game object, regardless of what type of game object. There's many types of game objects. Keep it at that. Game objects are the building blocks of Unity. A game object on its own doesn't do anything. We add things called components, which components are going to have that functionality, to game objects to change how they look and behave. So the behavior is the functionality. As far as look, that's like properties and change on the game object component to make it look okay. A component tells Unity what the game object does, such as move or make a component. We went through the videos, you saw that there's multiple components that can be within the game object, but every game object has a transform component, regardless of what type of game object it is, or what type of game object you're about to create. It's always going to have a transform component automatically added to it. And then you can have multiple components under that. Alright, so let's hit start, go through that. Okay, it's asking us to enter play mode. So let's put the play button up top here. Sometimes there's a little delay before you can actually do anything with your game. When you hit play, what it's actually doing is going through the game code, the objects, compiling them behind the scenes in a format that it can use in the editor here. Okay, so the game is running. It says use the WASD arrow keys and keyboard to move the character to the green triangle. So we're going to move this character down here into the green triangle. That's our first. Okay, so when we hit the green triangle, you see it activated. Something it dropped the platform. Little green platform here dropped down. Make a change to our game. We want to leave play mode. Okay, we can't complete this level because we can't get past the laser. Okay. So it says exit play mode. We're going to exit right now.
Tune in to K-Love on the TuneIn app. Positive, encouraging music on your phone.
Okay, and we'll hit next. And it says we can't move any further because the box 1 game object doesn't follow the green platform moves. Okay, so if you notice, there was a little box with a number 1 on it that was apparently sitting on this green platform. And what was supposed to happen, you stepped in the green triangle, activated the green platform, or triggered it to drop, and the box is supposed to fall. Well, the box just hung there in midair. Obviously that's a glitch, and I guess the box is made of, looks like, supposed to be metal, and so it probably would block the laser beam from coming out of the left side of the wall here, thereby allowing us, our little guy, to run past. So this is where the rigid body comes into play. It says we can't move any further because the box 1 game object doesn't follow when the green platform moves. To make the box game object fall, we will add a component to it. The component is called a rigid body. This is important, this next paragraph. Rigid body components are part of Unity's built-in physics system. Adding a rigid body component to a game object means that the game object will be affected by physics forces such as gravity. That's important to know, that when you add a rigid body to the game object, that's how you get those qualities. let's go ahead and do that. We're going to hit next. It's probably going to allow us to get to it. So now it says select the box 1 game object. So I'm assuming they want us to just click on it here in the scene view here. We're going to click on. Okay, so we clicked on it. It's selected now. The way you know it's selected is it has the little gizmos, they call it, little X, Y, and Z directional arrow gizmos on it. So it's currently selected. Hit next. So the highlighted window is called the inspector window, which we learned that going through the initial 8 or 9 essentials videos. So there's our inspector. It's on box 1. It's showing all the properties of box 1. There's our transform component. Each of these sections is a component. We've got a mesh filter component. You have a mesh renderer component, box collider component, play audio on collision script. So there's apparently a script component. We have a couple of shader, looks like shader components here. Cargo cube gray and maze gray. 2 different shaders. Okay, so when we select the game object, we see information about it in the inspector window, which you can see. Next. So we can use the inspector window to add a component to the selected game object. Add a rigid body component to the selected game object. So, and what it basically says is the way you do that is by clicking. I'm sorry, I'm yawning, I'm tired. In the inspector window here, there's an add component button at the bottom here. We're going to click add component. And in the menu that appears, we're going to click on physics, or right there, and that gives us some physics components that we can add. We want to choose rigid body, and apparently it's the top one. It must be a very common one for game objects, which it's not even in alphabetical order, it's just at the top, rigid body. So we're going to click on that. Okay, so we see right here in this section where I'm moving the mouse, got a rigid body component that was added. And we got some properties here.
Positive,
mass,
encouraging,
drag,
K-Love,
drag,
casting crowns,
use
it's Jeff and
gravity,
Randy.
is
After
kinematic,
sidewalk profits,
interpolate,
I'm going to give you a
collision
money-saving tip that
then there's another
you
thing, I guess,
won't believe.
expand called constraints. And I guess we can freeze the position in the rotation if we wanted by checking those boxes. But we're not going to do any of that because I'm not sure how that affects anything yet. Alright, so let's click next. We're on step 9 of 16. Okay, so all we did was just add that component, rigid body, nothing more. We didn't change anything there, we just said add a rigid body to that box. So now it's asking us to click the play button, enter play mode, so we're going to do that.
Love opened the door for us. He said, come to the table.
So we got our laser sounds from it. Now let's run our guy again, the triangle, let's see what happens this time. Alright, you see if you're watching, the box fell and now it's blocking the laser. Now it says move to the red square. Alright. So you see what happened when you hit the red square, the red arm, the bionic arm, seemed to extend out toward the other laser beam over here. But it looks like it went through the box too, so I'm assuming we wanted it to collide with that tube and actually push it in front of the laser. So let's go through and see how we fix that. Okay, so it wants us to click the play button to exit play mode, so we're going to do that. Top here. Alright, did that. Well, the highlighted window is called the hierarchy window. Okay, so now we have the hierarchy window. Okay, so the hierarchy window is a list of everything we can see in the scene view. So everything that can be seen in the scene view up here. scene view, to the left of it, will be in the hierarchy window. Use the hierarchy window to organize and view objects in the scene. So it lets us easily click, like if we wanted to click the player, or switch the triangle or whatever, box 1, box 2. Instead of trying to find it in the scene, which can get pretty congested with a lot of items and a lot of objects, game objects, find it here through the hierarchy. And you can see it's not really in alphabetical order. If you watch the tutorials again, I'm going to reference those. When you're building a game in Unity in a project here, as you add game objects to a scene, they just start adding from top to bottom in that order. You can always rearrange them if you want, but that's the order they're shown, is the order they were created. So that's why they are the way they are. And as you can see, they all have a little triangle to the left of each of them. None of them are indented, which means they're actually a parent object themselves. They're indented under one. That would mean that they're like a child object of another object, but we have no children objects or child objects visible right now. These are all considered parent objects in this game scene. Child-parent relationship will become important when you get to
It's positive, encouraging.
other things, like, say, for example, you have a camera, you have a player that's moving around, and you want to have a camera that follows him from behind, let's say. You're going to have a camera that's a child of that player controller, so that's the way it follows.
You can count it good.
It moves every time the player moves, and it moves.
I mean, Merlin Carruthers, a long time ago. It's called Prison to Praise, and it was that.
Not an absolute position in the world.
It works in life. So I'll give you an example. I had to go to the podiatrist, the foot doctor.
Oh, the foot, yeah.
I can't even think of the word.
A while ago, and I had to have on my left foot. I had to
anyway,
have my big toes
we'll come back to you know what I mean.
Removed.
Ew.
For life.
Kind
it's
of
never coming back.
Like your hair.
Related to that object, though.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure the word's going to come to me right after this is all over. Anyway, this is
Backing up and they're hitting the road.
this is what happens when you do this when you're tired. So anyway, let's get through this. I want to keep moving along. Tired or not.
In that.
Yeah, what is the positive in that?
So
I'd kind of like you to
I want us to
guess.
click next.
It feels
Now,
cool like your head does now.
now, box 2 is what we're interested in here.
Smooth.
Box 2 game object
I don't-
respond to physics forces cannot be pushed
No, I
by the
don't have a
robotic
toe
arm, which is
beanie.
like I said earlier.
Gotta keep
We
my
need to add a
toe warm.
rigid body component to this game
But I know
object.
you like to save money.
This time, let's
Yes.
practice
Right?
using
Yeah,
the
we
hierarchy
will do.
window to
So it's a
select.
money saver.
Now it wants us to do it
How
instead of
is
in the
having
scene.
no toenail
We'll
a
click it
money
there.
saver?
So
Everybody
box
think
2,
about this.
they actually
Now,
had it
if you know
labeled
the
box
answer,
2
yell
right
at your
here.
radio so Randy can get it.
Listening.
Why
Okay.
is that
So we've
unfortunate
selected it.
thing a money saver?
And you can see it selected
For real?
in the scene because
I
it
talked
has
to the guy and
the
he agreed to this.
X, Y, and Z
When I
gizmos,
go
directional
to get
arrows
a
and
pedicure,
gizmos,
I get
and
10%
it's outlined.
off.
You know, it's the select object.
And I think I'm the only person who has
There is a way to
that
select multiple
I don't
objects.
know
When you
what's
click an
funnier
item
is
like that, it's
you
just going
get
to select
10% off and that you
individual
get a
game object.
pedicure.
So in the inspector window at the bottom, we're going to click Add
Well, I
Component
can't
down
bend
here.
over to do it myself anymore.
Caleb.
Pause that radio just a second. I got some talkers on there. That's actually too distracting anyways. Okay, so we're going to do the Add Component. And again, we're going to go to Physics and Rigid Body. So we're going to add Component Physics and choose it just like we did before. And you see it added the Rigid Body. Next. And we're just going to enter play mode now. So that was a very simple fix actually on both of those. Just by adding a rigid body to each of those boxes. So now we're starting over down here. This is our game window here. Game scene. Shows the actual game how it's going to look. And there we are. Boom. Box one drop. Laser on. I knew we could do it. I'm gonna run and then finish. Boom, we did it. Got both of electricity running through our body. Supercharged, I guess. He's doing some kind of weird dance. I don't know what that is. Some wave. Look at he's laced up. He's pushing up like energy up. and towing it out with his hand. Alrighty, we're going to hit play mode to stop. Game pause, click to resume. Just letting us know that we can do that. Exit. I guess that's it. So in the tutorial we learned that game object components are the building blocks of Unity. That we add components to game objects to change how they behave. We added the rigid body. How to select game objects in the scene view or hierarchy view. So we could do it through the scene or the hierarchy. Either way. It's whatever makes sense at the time. And how to use the inspector window to add components to game objects. Wonderful. That was useful. Tutorial 3 here is tweaking components, values versus zombies. Develop your component knowledge further as you learn about values and how they affect gameplay. Values are like, when you look at this rigid body we added here to the right, where it says mass 1. 1 is the value of mass. These are properties. Mass, drag, angular drag, and these are the values to the right. Anyways, didn't mean to sidebar like that. So we're going to develop your component knowledge as you learn about values and how they affect gameplay. Can you slow down the polygon eating zombie in time to escape? Let's find out. Let's go ahead and download the other one. We'll just have it there, ready to go. And let's hit start. No, we don't want to save. Forget it. Again, I'm not sure how the quality's coming out. Hopefully it's coming out okay. I'm not even sure how to find out if I have viewers on this stream. Yeah, the quality looks like garbage, actually. I'm looking at what I'm seeing. You probably could barely see it. What I'm probably going to have to do, because my system here just doesn't have, I don't think it has a raw power for me to be doing all this and go 1920 by 1080. Oh wait, no, whoa. My bad. Hold up. I forgot. Just to save on bandwidth on my system, when I watch YouTube videos that I don't really necessarily need to see everything, just trying to view them for tracking time. You know, like there was a couple of streamers that had, if you watch their video, you know, you build up points and stuff like that, and you can spend the points on things in game and whatever. So I dropped down the quality, and that's why it's looking like crap. Let me go back. Let me see what 1080p looks like when I'm viewing it. Okay, yeah. That's actually doing a pretty good job. I think if I were doing a game that had a lot of, like I've tried to stream some games in the system that were 1080p, and with all the 3D gameplay, you know, you got so much changing on the screen that can't keep up with the frame rate. But with this, I mean, my desktop background is really not changing. The only thing that's changing is the little progress bar right now. So it's really easy for it to compress and do a 1080p. So maybe I'll stick to streaming 1080p educational streams for now and stick along this lines anyways. I'm trying to get away from not playing games so much and actually learning how to develop them. So we may mix this up too. Obviously, when we get to a point where we need to create some graphics, we'll switch into a graphic mode, learning a couple of tools out there and the techniques we need to create some basic graphics in whatever format Unity needs. So I'd like to learn how to do all that. And we're going to do that, like I said, rather than download assets. We'll learn and do some, obviously we may not do the best artwork out there, but we want to learn the process of how it's done. And then, you know, later on, we could download and use the assets that are rendered in high quality from the store and just replace our handmade assets that we're using just as a fill-in in our game, just to get the gameplay going. It's always best to iron things out, make sure everything's working gameplay-wise, than to worry about the aesthetics and the graphics on the front end. Because you can spend hours tweaking how something looks, you know, and what's important is when you're building the game, does the gameplay work? Does everything work for the user? The controls, the navigation. There's so many other important things that need to be ironed out and bug-free, and then you can polish it off with some nice graphics at the end, you know. And so a lot of times when you're developing stuff, it may not look great in the beginning, but keep in mind you got to look at that light at the end of the tunnel, that when you get done doing the things that matter, then you can put the icing on the cake and really, you know, make it look cool. All right, so here we are. We're going to be altering values now, so let's see how we're going to do that. Okay, click the play button. So it's going to let us play this. You can see it's a variation of the same game. So my guess is, I bet you, and I'm just guessing what's going to happen here. We are going to hit the red platform. It's going to drop down the spikes, and the zombie's going to come running out. We want to get to where we can hit the green triangle, which will open this triangle door and get to the landing zone here. So let's see if I'm right. Yeah, so look how fast that zombie's running. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're going to click the play button and stop that. He's obviously running way too fast. There's no way we can move fast enough to get past him. Okay, so we want to select the game object called enemy. So there's a game object here called enemy. We're going to do this in the hierarchy window. Right here, enemy. Okay, so now we're looking at the inspector window here. And it's going to probably have us check a property. So change the value mark speed to 1. Yeah, we see that speed was 30. That was ridiculously fast. 30, okay. Whoops. I missed the nav. Said something about the nav speed. No, I don't want to restart next. I missed something about nav. I don't even know if it lets you go back. Let's see. There we go. All right, here we go. In the inspector, there's a little arrow up top here. I didn't see that. Let's go back. In the inspector window, locate the component called nav mesh agent. Okay, that's going to be over here. In the inspector window, okay, and then change the value mark speed to 1. Oh, we did that already. I thought it was something different, maybe. Anyway. So click the play button. We're going to use the WASD or arrow keys on the keyboard to move the character. Okay. Okay, so now we actually have a chance. Look at that. We have a chance. We were able to escape. Okay, so that failed. It opens and it closes. So don't give us enough time. There should be a delay where the doors stay open for a few seconds and then automatically close behind us. So we gotta hit the play button to stop that. We gotta fix that problem now. Okay, select the automatic doors game object. So where is that? Automatic doors right here. Okay, and so we want to set the door time until close to 10. Okay, so it has 0.4, which is like less than whatever. If that's going in milliseconds or seconds, it's like less than half a second. Let's set it to 10. Okay, so we did that like it said. Hit next. The door component is not part of any Unity's built-in systems. It was made specially for this example game. Okay, so the door is a... Matter of fact, if you look at the door, to the right it tells you the type of component this is. It's called a script. So this is actually a script, a file, a code file. I don't know what language I'm sorry, right there. If you look closely, to the left of the check mark, it's got C# there. So that's a C# script that they included that runs when the door is, when you click on the triangle, it actually opens the door pieces and closes. And I imagine what the door is comprised of 2 different pieces that are just butt up against each other. And when you run that script, it's moving each piece on the x-axis. Obviously, this piece to the left, that to the right, and then it moves it back right away. But there's a delay, probably a delay timer in there, which was set too low, and it can be controlled. If you, yeah, this is, when we look at the script, we're going to see, this is something I do remember from 2 years ago. These values, when you create a script, you can create public properties, and these public properties in the Unity environment, once you drop that script, any public properties will show inside the component box here for that component, that script component. So time until close is actually a public property that's set in the script and code, and so it exposes it to the user interface here, the inspector interface of Unity. So that I thought was really cool, the way they did that. So we'll get into that later. You probably haven't even seen a script, what it looks like. Alright, so anyway, it says we can make our own custom components that do anything we like by writing code. We'll look at writing code in later tutorials, so that's great. Alright, so now we're going to click the play button. We'll redo this game, simple game. Alright, figure that. Now the zombie runs. So, yeah, so now we made it. 10 seems a little extreme. The speed of the zombie just seems a little bit too slow. Can make it a little more challenging. There's no way to run through that. I wanted to stop that. So I want to play it again, though. I'm just curious what happens when the zombie hits the player. Oh, I was hoping my audio was... Wait a minute. Yeah, hopefully my audio is coming through. I thought I had my switch off this entire time of doing the stream. Alright, so we run here. Let's run right into the zombie. Let's see what happens. Actually, oh, he killed us. Look, it fell over. How many times does it take for him to hit us before we die? Oh, immediately. I tried to back up and run, and I couldn't. So as soon as he touches you, it does some kind of keel over and die animation. Yeah, see, I just ran into the side. He didn't even strike us. I just touched him, and it dissolved. It's crazy. The other thing is the AI is just pretty simple. All he does is run back and forth over there. You run into his little cage. See if we hit the red again. If it triggers... No, see, I thought it would trigger the thing back up like a toggle. It doesn't. Anyway. You can see with this is actually a considered a orthographic style game. Still got 3D elements. You can see the shadowing and all that. Alright, so let's unplay that. Next, okay, so that was the tutorial. We learned how to change values in the inspector, and we're done. We could have played around with, instead of having it set to 10 on the door. We could have did like 5 and see if we can make it there, or 2. You can play around with stuff later on in your own games as we do this. Let's move on to the last one, prefabs. That's a good one just to go over. Yeah, I definitely like prefabs. That's where a lot of the power in reusable components comes, or reusable game objects, let's put it that way. It's going to be this prefab. So let's go through that tutorial example and find out exactly what we need to do with prefabs. I more or less remember, but we're going to go through this just for the sake of showing it. Obviously, prefabs is short for like a prefabricated game object, or that can include one or more components. For example, you might have, say you download some assets, different props, different things, but you download assets for building, for creating buildings. Let's say some of the assets come in individual game objects, such as a wall, a door, a window, a roof, you know, different things, pieces of furniture, you know, that kind of stuff, and other props that you could put within if you were building a house, for example. And so, and you'll see how this prefab works, but the way the prefab works, you could create a game object. It's called house, and then you add other game objects to it, which would be like the walls, and you actually build your house with all these individual parts, and then you can save the entire thing as a prefab, which puts it in your prefab library. And so if you needed to have multiple houses, you wouldn't have to recreate each one individually. You can just take the prefab, drop it in, and then take another, grab that prefab and drop it in again into your Unity game world. Do it as many times as you want. You can do it through the visual environment, but the beauty of the prefab is you can spawn those from writing, from a script, from code. You could generate them on the fly and populate your world through scripting code by creating what's called an instance of a prefab, or an object-oriented terms. You're instantiating a prefab. So if you've done any research on object-oriented programming, that's essentially the process that's happening behind the scenes, what they have built in. And you instantiate or create an instance of a prefab, which becomes a game object in your hierarchy, in your Unity project. So we'll get more into that later, but we're going to go over this simple example they have. Yeah, one of the things I did 2 years ago was I wanted to build a castle and have a castle that I could explore in Unity, and then build some props and some interaction with items, and I was just trying to learn how to interact with things and all that. But anyways, I didn't have a castle that was free at the time, and so, but I did find these, there was like this texture they had for building like cinder blocks or bricks, and so I took their basic primitive that they had, which was a square, and I altered it to be more rectangular, and then applied the brick texture. There was different ones, and I used like different ones to get a nice look at it. But I created several of these bricks of varying sizes, and saved those as prefabs once I created those, and then I used them bricks to create like a wall, for example, and then I saved the entire wall as a prefab, and then I was able to really start piecing together the castle quicker by having, and I did a couple variations of the wall, including gated fences and stuff, and then built an entire courtyard with this castle and fences, and I wish I would have saved the project. It took some time to do all that, but I don't even know where it's at this point. So like, I'm starting from square one again, and I've pretty much forgotten a lot of what I did. It was 2 years ago, and I spent like a week. It took me a week to learn all that, and I learned a lot in a week, but I was doing it 8 hours a day. So about 40 hours of time fiddling with Unity. Okay, so let's step through this tutorial as quick as we can. This is on creating a prefab. So when we have a game object set up exactly how we want it, we can save that game object and make copies of it. We call the saved file a prefab. So the saved file of the saved copy of a game object is called a prefab. It goes in your prefab library. In this tutorial, we'll learn how to use prefabs to fix problems in another level of our game. Okay, so we're going to hit start. Click the play button. Alright, let's see what we have here. What's going on? Okay, you want to walk over the green triangles with that. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Start that. Okay, exit. Okay, the highlighted window is called the... So it opened the door, but what happens, it looks like, you can see, we're on a level that... I don't think we can get up there. Could we even jump? I'm not sure. So let's see, read here what we're actually trying to fix. Okay, so the project window shows all the files that are used in our game. These files are called assets. So there's the project window. And every file is apparently an asset in the project, whether it be a code file, a model file, a plugin, you know, some kind of, what are these? We got a ramp and a pushable box. So those are all considered assets. Assets include 3D models, audio file scripts, and so on. A prefab is a template game object that we can make copies of. A prefab is a type of asset, so we can find prefabs in the project window. So prefabs are identified by this blue kind of cube. You'll as you're working with Unity and building prefabs, they have this same icon that they use to indicate a prefab. All right, so let's hit next. So in the project window, click on the prefab called ramp. So we're going to click on it. Select the ramp prefab, which I did. Next. We can place a copy of a prefab in our scene by dragging the prefab from the project window to the hierarchy window or scene view. So we can drag it to either place. This is known as creating an instance of the prefab. So by doing that, behind the scenes, it's doing whatever it needs to do to create that instance. And so you have a copy of that prefab in your scene. So let's create an instance of the long ramp prefab. Create an instance of the ramp prefab. Drag the ramp prefab from the project window into the empty space at the bottom of the hierarchy window. So this is the hierarchy window up here. The empty space is below switch square. All this space under here they're talking about. We can just drop it anywhere. So we're going to click and hold left mouse button. Drag that over here. Just drop it right there. Now you should see, yeah, it added ramp. So it added the ramp to the scene. This is our scene. Hierarchy window. Oh, it's our scene window, but it added it to the hierarchy window for us in our scene. So that was easy enough. When we drag the ramp prefab from the project window to the hierarchy window, we place a copy of that prefab in our scene. There's now a ramp that our player can use to reach the higher platform. Okay, so we added a new prefab, which was a model of a ramp, to the scene. Now it just happened to be in the right position because when they created this prefab, its X, Y, and Z coordinates were set in such a way that, you know, its initial state or its initial location within this 3D scene here would be exactly where it needed to be. I mean, normally it's not like that, but that's part of setting up a prefab. You got to have a starting location. All right, so we're gonna hit next. So we're gonna click the play button. See, now we're kind of adding one thing or fixing one thing and then testing it by playing one at a time. As a beginner starting out, Unity is probably the best thing to do. But if you know that there's multiple things that need to be fixed and you know how to fix them, later on you go ahead and fix more than one thing at a time and then test them at once. Alright, so we made it to the other platform. We were able to hit the red square, which triggered the robotic arm. And it pushed an invisible block in front of the laser, which did nothing. So what we want to do is obviously add another block here, the prefab. They called it pushable block. And so let's hit the play button. Stop that. Hit next. Alright, so create an instance of the pushable box prefab. So in our project window again, we're going to locate the prefab called pushable box, which is right above the ramp. And we're going to drop that into the empty space at the bottom of the hierarchy window. So easy enough. Boom. So we did that. Now we have created an instance of the pushable box prefab, but it isn't where we want it to be. We need to move it into position. Okay, this is good. They didn't have this one exactly where it needed to go. So we'll get to see how we can move an object using these gizmo directional gizmos. We move any game to move any game object. We can change the values of a component called the transform. All game objects have a transform component. The transform component holds data about where the game object is in the scene, how it is rotated, and how it is scaled. Let's just next. Okay, so there's our transform right here. And so it's wanting us to change the position values X, Y, and Z. Now it's giving us the exact position values to move to. Normally you wouldn't actually know this. I mean, you're not going to just say, oh, I need to move it to X -2, Y 2.5, and Z 10. You're probably going to drag it and move it to where you need to and zoom in so you get it exactly where you want it. And then you'll know what the values are at that point. But they already know what those values are, and they did the tutorial. So we're going to change that to a -2. We'll change Y to 2.5. And then Z to a 10. And so you see by doing that, it moved the cube directly in front of the robotic arm. Alright, so that's what it says. By changing the values in the transform of the pushable box game object, we have changed its position in the scene. The pushable box game object is now in the correct place. Great. Let's hit next. Let's test the change we have made. Oh, I'm getting stuffy now. Enter play mode. Click the play button to enter play mode. So we're kind of getting the hang of some of this stuff, how to use it. The key is to remember everything that we've learned, just remember it. So we don't have to keep going back and watching tutorials. Okay, so now we're going to use the keys, trigger that, that opens the door, hit this, boom, it pushes the box, slide that over, lock the keys, and now we can run out to the safe zone. If I can have it. So there we are. So we learned how to create an instance of a prefab, which created 2 new game objects in our scene. And in one of them we were able to modify the transform properties X, Y, and Z, position of the transform X, Y, and Z to relocate the box to the proper position in front of the red robotic arm. It was necessary to block that laser beam to allow us to pass. Alrighty, so let's hit play again to stop that. Hit next, and so that's completed. That's our tutorial. Now they got some tutorial projects. I'm just curious about what's there. I hadn't really looked at it. Okay, so this is all the stuff they're showing on the website. It looks like the same icons and the same names. 2D Game Kit. Make your own 2D platformer game without code using our ready-made components. This kit also contains a ready-made game example for you to learn from. How to roll a ball. Space shooter. Survival shooter. Tanks. 2D roguelike. Learn how to make a procedural 2D roguelike game. I don't know, we may look at those later. Sometimes what I like to do is if I'm trying to figure something out, this is in general, when I used to do regular programming, not game programming, but application programming, I would of course try to figure it out on my own. Sorry about that. My dog was barking at somebody walking by outside. So anyways, what I was saying is if I would try to figure something out first, and if I couldn't quite figure out how to do exactly what I was trying to do, I'd look at, you know, maybe find some source code for some kind of program out there and that did similar to what I'd want to do, and I'd just look at that portion of the code. I wouldn't necessarily go through a whole tutorial on how they built that program. I would just look at the portion of the program that showed me, you know, what I needed, and then I would take that and then at least point me in the right direction of what I needed to be doing. I could either write something from scratch, or in some cases I could copy what they had, and I wouldn't actually necessarily, I would paste it into my project, but I wouldn't actually use that. I would put that in what's called a comment in the code. So it was in view there. I'd have it in a like a notepad document off to the right, be able to reference that, and then I would just, you know, write what I needed to based off of that. But over time, you start learning how things are done, and then it starts to stick with you. And then when you do it the next time, you don't have to reference somebody else's project. You could just do it, you know, off the top of your head because you remember how to do that. And so the more you do programming, the more you work with this, the more we work with Unity, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to pick up things, we're going to learn things. We may have to reference some other projects to learn how to do something, but as we do it, we'll remember, and the next time we need it in the next project or the next part of the game that we're working on, it may require, you know, something similar. We'll know how to do that already, and so that's all part of the learning process. So I guess that's been long enough. We did at least a 1-hour video that got us through some tutorials. I may come back and do a, it's about 7:22 my time. It's kind of early. I'm just exhausted and tired, but I want to keep going and doing this. But like I said, I'm going to do everything live. So I'm going to take a short break. I will grab something to eat, get a drink, kind of get refreshed, and we'll start, you know, diving into more likely doing a Space Invaders type clone. And like I said, it's going to be with some very basic primitive object. You know, we'll use rectangles and squares to represent, and triangles maybe to represent the various players, and then we'll change it out later. We're just going to use this as fillers for now, and to try to get some gameplay going and get into, you know, maybe some script. We're probably going to be doing some research, and we're going to be looking things up to find out how to do certain things. So we may not have a whole lot of progress, but at any rate, we may do something. If I don't return, it's because I just got too tired after I ate, and I will pick up on this tomorrow. So y'all have a good one. Go get something to eat if you haven't. We'll meet back later. Follow me, subscribe to me on my YouTube. That'll make sure you get notified when I go live again, and you can keep up on it if you want. If you're on the go, you can watch me on your phone. Everyone has YouTube, I'm sure. If not, you get the YouTube app from the App Store on your platform, whether it be Android or iOS. So subscribe, and that'll keep you up to date on when I go live. Thanks again for watching.